Welcome to my Phase 8 Mage Guide for Season of Discovery. This video will be tailored toward the Scarlet Enclave raid, so if you're looking for more information regarding Naxxramas, I'll leave a link to my Phase 7 guide in the description of this video. Starting off with the Mage Healer, you can move the points around in the Frost tree if you choose to do so. Nothing else is really going to benefit that Arcane spell school. I took the points into Frost just so if you have to use Frost Nova to get away from some ads that are on you. Same thing for maybe helping other healers if they have healer threat. I should still mention, you can still play the Spell Frost build if you choose to do so, but I highly recommend playing Arcane, especially with our new set bonuses. For runes, pretty much the same as last phase. Only thing I changed around is the Foot rune to the Chronostatic Preservation. This will be very useful since a lot of the fights do require a bit more movement. And if you want to still play the Spell Frost build, I'll leave a link to both builds in the description below. Moving on to the DPS builds, we have the Fire and Frost build for this phase. Starting off with the Fire talents, it's going to look something like this. You have the option if you want to move the points out of Frost Channeling into Blast Wave and Flame Strike, but that's pretty much the only thing to really move around. For runes, same exact runes as last phase, nothing to really talk about here. Moving on to the Frost build, a little bit different for talents this phase, going all the way down into Presence of Mind. This build does sim higher at the moment with Presence of Mind. Only points to really move around here is going to be in the Arcane tree. Again, I sound like a broken record, but standard stuff, pretty much the same thing as last phase as well. For gearing, I'll leave a link to all the best in slot lists in the description below. These links will contain the talents, runes, and that best in slot gear for all the specs we previously talked about. If any of this information is to change, I'll be sure to update these and keep them relevant throughout the phase. If you have any questions on the gearing process or how to use the sim, feel free to reach out to me on Discord. I'd be happy to help you out. For macros and weak auras, I'll leave a link to my Discord that contains everything I currently use. And anything I add in the future, I'll be sure to share that as well. Two macros I recommend in all of my mage videos is going to be the cooldown macro and the mana gem macro. The cooldown macro will pop all of your CDs and continue casting that primary rotation. Just change the line where it says cast Spell Frost Bolt to whatever spell you're currently using and you're good to go. Same thing for the mana gem macro. This will pop the highest ranked mana gem you have and continue casting that primary spell. The reason we're doing this is so we're not individually pressing each of those buttons. By doing so, you will close the gaps between your inputs, and this will slowly add up over time if you're not using a macro like this. Now that we got that covered, let's talk about rotation. For the Arcane Mage Healer, we're going to precast Mastery Gen on whatever groups we're going to be healing, popping our cooldowns, and then casting Arcane Barrage for some instant healing. Following that, we're going to go into a filler rotation in a priority list kind of follows, casting Arcane Blast, reapplying Mastery Gen when needed, and then anytime you get a Missile Barrage proc, you're always going to prioritize using Arcane Missiles before any of your other spells. And that's pretty much the rotation. Just make sure that you're never going over more than 2 Arcane Blast stacks. If you are, cast Arcane Barrage to reset your stack so you're not running out of mana. For the Fire rotation, this is going to be assuming you have your 4-piece set bonus. If you don't, just refer back to the previous build. I'll leave a link to that in the description below. On the pole, we're going to precast Frost Firebolt, and then casting Living Bomb and Fire Blast. Following that, we're going to pop all of our cooldowns and then begin casting Balefire Bolt. While stacking up Balefire Bolt, use your combustion on the 3rd Balefire Bolt stack. Now this is where the rotation will change. With our new set bonus, every time we cast Pyroblast, this will reduce the stacks of Balefire Bolt by 2. In the sim right here, we get 5 Balefire Bolts, use Pyroblast, now we're back down to 3. We use Balefire Bolt again, we're at 4, so we can't cast a 5th one, and then we don't have a Hot Streak proc here, so we're just going to go into a filler rotation and use Frost Firebolt. And it's just rinse and repeating that over and over again, and then of course using Fire Blast on CD, and then using Living Bomb to refresh Scorch. Now, once you get your 6-piece set bonus, you don't really have to worry about this anymore, as every time you cast Fire Blast, this will refresh the duration of Living Bomb. And essentially that's the entire rotation, holding onto your Hot Streak procs, using them when you have the highest stack of Balefire Bolt, and then casting Frostfire whenever you don't have a Hot Streak proc. Now, you don't have to play around going for 5 Balefire Bolt stacks, and early on, learning this rotation, I recommend just going for 4 until you get used to it, as I guarantee you'll make the mistake I did, casting a 5th Balefire Bolt and not having a Pyroblast ready to go. Just something you'll have to get used to, and it will take a little bit of learning, since this rotation is a bit different compared to Naxxramas. For the Frost rotation, what changes now is your Glaciate can now stack up to 10, and Spellfrost Bolt will grant 2 stacks of Glaciate each time it hits. And then your 4th piece will increase the time of Icy Veins by 10 seconds for every time you cast Deep Freeze. So on the pole, we're going to cast Frozen Orb and use Icy Veins. Following that, we're going to use all of our cooldowns and then using Deep Freeze as soon as possible. We're going to Cold Snap and use a second Frozen Orb. Following that, we're going to use Deep Freeze again as soon as possible. Next, we're going to use Ice Lance whenever we have 6 stacks or more of Glaciate, and then of course using Deep Freeze as soon as it comes off of cooldown so that you can extend your Icy Veins for as long as possible. For AoE Rotation, we're going to use Frozen Orb on cooldown, Blast Wave on cooldown, and then casting Living Bomb on as many targets as possible. Try getting the full duration if you can. Following that, we're going to cast Arcane Explosion if we ever have to move as kind of a filler, and then casting Flame Strike if we have multiple targets that are going to be standing still. For buffs and consumes, we'll be using the major mana potions, demonic runes or dark runes, we'll be using the Flask of Ancient Knowledge, and for weapon imbues, we'll be using the Enchanted Repellent. For food buffs, we have the new Sunrise Omelet. Defensives, I highly recommend using this on progression, the Elixir of Fortitude for an additional 120 health, and then for elixirs, we'll be using the Elixir of the Mage Lord, Greater Firepower, Frost Power, and then the Mage Blood Potion for some additional MP5. For miscellaneous, we have the Blasted Lance buff for an additional 25 int. This does stack with your Arcane Intellect, and then any Mage Scrolls you have lying around, be sure to use those as well. And then lastly, make sure to use your Profession consumables, Sappers or Bombs if you have Engineering, your Enchanting Scroll, and then the Alchemy Potion. And then the last bit of information goes without being said, but make sure that you're fully buffed on the pull, you have all the buffs that you need, you have all the debuffs sorted for your raid, and then of course you have the correct Mage Armor on. Make sure that you're using Molten Armor for Frost, and then Mage Armor for Arcane and Fire. And that's everything I got for this Mage Guide. Be sure to like and subscribe for more videos just like this one. Be sure to comment down below if you have any questions. And as always, I will see you in the next video.